All right, hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about how do you use all of this variation in one arrow setup. How do we do that kind of thing, including even a judo on here? And that's what we want to cover, because you're going to ultimately end up getting different bows, or you're going to end up shooting different things. Like you guys know that one of my bows broke recently. Broke it by my own fault, but we got a bow that's down, and I have Steve making me 2 new bows. They're going to end up being, I usually shoot, all my other bows are 57 pounds. These are going to come in at 53. If I have to make adjustments to that point system on that arrow to make my arrows work, will it be that hard? No, not at all. Will I have to get new arrows? No, not at all. Will I have to change anything? Just minor things, if anything. Probably nothing. I don't think I'm going to have to change anything. It's only a couple pounds, and it's on an ASL Hill style bow, so I'm not worried. But if I have to change some, or you're going to buy, let's say you bought a new bow, let's say you went from a recurve to a longbow or vice versa, any of these things that you're changing in your bows that are going to require differences in arrows, how can you make the stuff that you have work without having to buy new arrows, or even potentially buying new heads or changing things up? There's options for this, and that's what we want to cover today. How do you have all that flexibility to do anything you want to do? And we have a variety of heads that I kind of stuck in here that you can see that I just kind of smashed into this cardboard box. As an example here, some variations, as you can see on here. Now, every head that you see on here will work perfectly out of my arrow setup all day long. Yet some of them are got different components to make that happen and make that a reality. So those are the things we want to talk about. If you're about to buy a new bow, change something out, or whatever the case is, you don't have to worry about changing arrows. Arrows cost so much more than a bow does today. People are like, oh my God, a bow's $900, $1,000, $1,200. I get that, I understand it, but a dozen arrows is, a lot of money. I don't even know what it costs anymore for, let's just say you were building a dozen hunting arrows. If you think about it, you're looking at, let's just ballpark it, not even counting blends, but let's say that you're $100 in shafts, you're another $800 between feathers, knocks, and stuff like that. And today, depending on the inserts you go with, you might be another a dozen of them. You might end up coming in at $40 for inserts. So you're 100, 140 plus another heads today, $100 for 3 heads, depending on what you're going with. You need 4 of those. You might be $500 in a dozen arrows. My dozen arrows that I shoot are about $500 a dozen, I'm guessing. That's what it comes out to. $400 to $500 a dozen. That's a lot of money. Okay, it's a tremendous amount of money. You might think that sounds crazy. Add up what yours is. Figure out where you're standing at. Okay, but I promise you, when you start looking at the cost of some Ethics archery inserts, if you want to run those particular inserts, they're not cheap. They're expensive per dozen. Even if you want to run some of these brass inserts, they're very expensive per dozen. You want to run steel inserts, they're expensive per dozen. Like I said, broadheads are crazy. My favorite broadheads in the world, price-wise, are the A-Boyers. Here's an A-Boyer big bone head. Okay, as we look at this, we got an A-Boyer big bone head. Love it. Razor 250 from Razor Broadheads. Love it. A-Boyer Wapiti head right here, love it. A-Boyer, what do they call this one? Whitetail, great head, love it. This is their big 300 grain, 3-to-1 ratio head, excellent head. Magnus heads, love it. This is a meat head on here, but other than that, meat head and this one, which has been out of production for over almost 20 years now. It's been out of production 15 years, but all these other heads on here, they're going to cost you, for the most part, you're looking at somewhere about $10 a head. Okay, minimum $10 a head. I'm sorry, more than that. Sorry, $30 a head, $20 to $30 a head. If you're looking at these, like I said, you're like $80 for 3. These are $100 for 3. You're starting to spend some money. If you're at $100 for 3 of these, and you got to have 4, times 3 to make a dozen, that's $400 in heads alone. Another $100 in arrow component. Like I said, you can see how this adds up. So how do you give yourself that versatility to make your arrows work across a different line of bows or different lines of setups or things like that? Or maybe you went from a fast flight string to a Dacron string, or you went from a regular string to a skinny string, and now you're not getting quite the exact tune that you wanted to out of there, and you're really fine-tuning these things. Correcting those variations is what we want to do. Now again, all of these heads are different weights and different things, but they all work for me. How does that happen? That happens through, including a judo. Okay, if we look at this, this is basically a 250 grain broadhead setup on this arrow. But a Judo only comes in 135 grain screw on, yet this Judo right here is coming in at 250 grains. How did I do that? It's through this stuff right here, okay, through the componentry that we have here. I know it's kind of small. I'll zoom you in actually and show you here so you can see this here. Let me do that right now so we can talk about these. So I'm going to bring you here, set this up real quick. Let's go here. And where you can see this stuff, I'm hoping it's going to put it into focus for you. We shall see. But when we look at this stuff here, so what we have here is we have all of our components. Okay, we have our arrow. These are your brass and your broadhead adapters that we have that are mounted right here on these. Let me pull this head out. Here's an aluminum one mounted right here on this head, just like that. Reason that's on here, this is a 210 grain head. And I have a 42 grain insert stuck in there. Makes 250 grains. See how that works? Now on the same note, we come over here, and this one here is all right, so here we go. With this one, we have a 175 grain broadhead, but we got to get it to 250 grains, which is what we want to shoot. We have a 75 grain adapter, where on this one, we used a 42 grain adapter to make this one work. In this one, we're using a 75 grain adapter, which is giving us our 250. 175 and 75 gives us our 250. So we get that ability there. This one is the 250 that my weight is based on that I want to shoot. There's 250 automatically in that head that we have right here. This one here too. It's a 135 grain head. We match it with a 100 grain, no, that's 125, but we match it with a 100 grain steel adapter, and we get 235 grains, close enough to 250. So that's that combination that builds that one. We take this one right here. I don't remember what the weight of this is, but if I needed to, this is a 125 that's going to go in here that's going to get me that weight as well too. And that's a 125 right here. So you can see how we can adjust all of these different heads to make them work. Now, we can do the same thing through inserts. We can do the same thing if you're shooting, if you're shooting only screw-in heads that don't have that adjustability to use an adapter like all these do. These adapters are used for glue-on heads, and they glue right into there. That's how every one of these are set up, and these things I'm showing you. If you're shooting a head like this, it does not have the ability to be a glue-in and change the insert out. You can also change your actual insert in your shaft. Now, we have different variations here. We have a 50 grain brass insert. From that 50 grain brass insert, this is my custom-made 200 grain inserts that I have made on my own, that I've been making and shooting for the last decade. Right here, before Ethics Archery even started making this stuff, but that's that's what's in both of these arrows, is this 200 grain custom-made insert. Now, when Ethics Archery first came out, they came out with this one. This was their first 200 grain right here. Now, I want you to notice something when I line up. Okay, they look pretty close. They're not too far off, right? When you look at them in length, put it right there end to end. They don't look too super far off, but that doesn't count because of the fact that we have to go from where the throat is, this edge, this lip. If we put them from lip to lip, right? Like that, you can see the lip on these. There's a lot of difference there in distance. Okay, on these. Let me set those down. So you can see that difference in distance here. Put it lip to lip. Look at the length difference on those. Okay, pretty dang huge. So these did not work for me in the beginning. Then, this was one of the first ones they came out with. Now Ethics makes them with they put more weight in the back than they did in the front. Now here's their new one. We put them at the ends. You can see the difference in the ends of these. But when we slide that back and put lip to lip on theirs, okay, look at how much longer. Let me line those up exactly right. I'm going to hold them right on there, sorry. Lip to lip, look how much longer this new version is. I don't know how long you've been using it, but the new one is compared to the old one, which puts it much more in line with where mine is, as you see right there. So it's a win-win for me. So now I actually will be using these. I will be using the new Ethics ones. This one here, like I said, that difference in height can make a difference in whether or not it tunes well for me. So that stuff matters. But you can use your inserts to change out your insert if you need to, if you're using a fixed blade head. You can go from a 12 grain insert in a carbon today up to a 100 grain like this, to a 200 grain, to anything you can think of. Even on Amazon, they make some 300 grain brass inserts. So you have options, but it's through this stuff that allows you to change out and get what it is that you need for your setup on there. It's also the reason that I am a huge fan of a glue-on broadhead. These are all glue-on broadheads. This glues onto an adapter like this. This is my whole favorite world. Why? Because I get total and complete adjustability. Now the razors are not a glue-in. Here, they are fixed position, but I'm okay with that because they are exactly 250, which is what all my heads I shoot are. Now, Razor makes this, sorry, we got stuff everywhere. Razor makes this in a 125, a 200, a 250, and a 300. So they kind of got all the bases covered there for everybody, but this one just works perfectly being a 250 for me automatically. If this was not a 250 grain head, I would not be shooting it, because all of my other ones are coming in at what I want, which is 250 grains, plus my 200 grain up front insert that sits inside of here, which gives me my overall total, right there, look at that, and that gives me my overall 450 grains up front on my arrow. And that's very important to me. So like I said, you'll find what works for you, but that's the beauty of being able to use the componentry that we have today to fine tune and get exactly what you need in your weight setup. Gonna work for you with whatever it is that you are looking for out of your heads, out of your bow setup, you know, that kind of thing. So that's the beauty of this system. It gives you pretty much unlimited options and opportunity to fine tune and make stuff work the way you want in any combination of things. So hopefully it's helpful for you. I know I made videos about this in the past as well too, but I thought it's been a while, so it's time to update one. But especially for you new guys coming in, you are not locked in. If you are shooting carbon arrows, even wood with woody weights and things that you can do in there, and adjustable tip inserts, you are not locked in to having to have a different set of arrows for every different weight bow you have. Or if you have a bow and you buy another one, you are not locked in and not be able to change that. You have unlimited options between changing out the adapters, changing out your inserts, changing out these variables in there, and making things work for you. So any questions or comments you got, put them down below. As always, thanks for watching.